Hey everybody, this is Brittany here with Surfing Waves of Light. I am dog sitting today and I was taking the dogs for a walk and had a little download, so I felt inspired to share. So, what I was feeling was about life, of course. LOL, always about life. I've been listening a lot to this Course in Miracles teacher. His name is Keith. He has a channel called A Course in Miracles with Keith, and he teaches in the style of Ken Wapniak, who is a well-known teacher in the course world. And he was talking a lot about how you practice forgiveness in this lifetime. And he basically says that we practice forgiveness by being the non-judgmental awareness. So when it comes to anything that is our personality, that is Brit, for example, I don't have to change Brit, that personality, that being. I just have to be the non-judgmental observer of her. And so when it comes to anything that I have any guilt, any shame, any suffering, anything like that over, my job is to just watch that and to be willing to release it, or to feel peace around it if I can't always get right into that non-judgmental observer place. And so the guides were talking about experiences, because so sometimes we have these things in our life that we know maybe that they don't serve our highest good, or maybe they do serve our highest good. I've been watching some stuff about famous people, and basically, I don't know if you've ever watched any documentaries about famous people, but the moral of the story usually is they get really famous and it's not what they think it is, and it's more hectic than it is positive. Can be positive in other ways, but there can be a lot of negative things that come from that kind of attention. You can't even go out to places. You are overwhelmed. There's paparazzi all around you. You have an enormous amount of attention on yourself, which I can't even imagine. Sometimes I post these videos and think, oh my God, 40 people watch that, or 60 people watch that. And as an empath, I can feel that attention. And so I feel like a lot of times we want different things in our life, and there may be a judgment around whether that's good for us or bad for us. But what my guides were saying is that the eventual reuniting with our unconditional love consciousness, that oneness consciousness, it's inevitable. They've said this many times before. But they're saying that there's two ways that people typically go about getting to that consciousness. One way is that there's things in the life that they think are bad or maybe even good, but they feel like they should pull away from those things. But it's in a very restricted way, like a judgmental way. I shouldn't do that anymore. And then there are other people who live out the experiences they want to have 100%, good or bad. And then what can happen through that moment, through that way of doing things, is different. What can happen is different than what happens through restriction. So in a more restrictive way, like for example, I've practiced restriction in my diet in the past, and that's never worked for me. I know that restriction doesn't work for me. Now, discipline and restriction are different things, but the energy around restriction is that you still want something, but you can't have it. So just think about that. So then there's this other part of me that when I go to do something, I have to do it 100%. Like if I want to surf, I'm going to surf every wave that I can and surf as much as I can. If I want to be free, I'm going to do everything I can to be free. And so what the guides are saying, and based on what, Keith says, our job is to not be so attached to our identity, the Brit self or the whoever self you are out there. And you can get to that place. One, we practice it, right? By coming into the non-judgmental awareness whenever we can. But two, when we start to get to a place where we don't want things in this world anymore, it's not that we're trying to escape the world, but there's nothing that we're clasping onto. That is a really natural way for us to be in the peace, to be in the unconditional loving oneness consciousness. So they were being funny because you think of bad things and you would never say to someone who was like, doing something bad, like you should do that 110% because then once you do it, you won't want it anymore. But the guides are saying that. Now, of course, use your discernment. They're not saying doing anything extreme or harmful to yourself, but it's almost like what they're saying is that if you live out your experiences 100%, what ends up happening is you'll realize you don't want them anymore. Because a lot of times what we think something will be egoically, especially if it's an egoic experience that we want to have, like fame or fortune or beauty or something, through living out the experience, we'll understand, we'll embody. The guides are really about embodying energy as opposed to logically understanding energy. We'll embody the knowingness of what those words really mean. What fame really means, what fortune really means. And a lot of times we equate them with happiness or improvement in self-confidence or money or all these wants that we have. But once we live it out 100%, we know that, yes, there's perks to the experience, but it's not what we really want. And it's through living out experiences 100% that there's a much more natural and easy way of letting go of the world. Because what they're saying is that our souls do come in here to experience specific experiences. And when you constantly practice restriction, not saying discipline, use your discernment in this conversation, but when we constantly practice restriction, there could be an aspect of our soul that has not fully lived out that experience. And so when we have not fully lived out the experience, there will always be a part of us that wants it. Now, they're saying that there can be extreme cases of this that they're not endorsing, but you can use what they're saying and practice discernment and logic and understanding with it. And just, you can look at maybe a small unhealthy habit you have. For me, I would say, sometimes I like to eat unhealthy food like mac and cheese or ice cream. And I don't even think they're bad. But what they're saying is that, and I feel this has happened to me multiple times with different things. I feel that you do it enough, and especially the way the energies are right now, they're so high and they're so sensitive. Like I probably ate, I don't know, half a cup or a quarter of a cup of mac and cheese tonight. And my belly started to hurt. And it was really cool because like the embodied energy of me was like, yeah, I don't really want that anymore. And I've been watching myself. I've gone through a couple of years where I would eat well, and then I wouldn't eat so well. And then I'd eat well, and then I wouldn't eat so well. And I'm watching myself now, having fully lived out that experience, just having a lot of ease around reaching for a salad or a smoothie, or just, not overeating till my stomach hurts. Little things like that I used to do in the past. And that happened to me with drinking, actually. I grew up, I was a lifeguard, and I grew up in a beach town, and there was a really big drinking culture, and it was so much fun. I have no regrets about the times I spent with people. Sometimes I found alcohol really helped me to connect to others, especially in those times and those energies where I know I was a lot more closeted, didn't really know who I was, and I think a lot of people were really within themselves, and alcohol and those fun nights that we all had together allowed us to see aspects of ourselves that we couldn't show in the day-to-day when our faces were, our masks were up. But I just got to this point where it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm abusing it or anything. I just got to this point where I'm like, I'm just not getting anything out of these experiences anymore. Through connection to my spiritual practice, through connection with others and energy work, I was finding a new way to be vulnerable with other people, to share my deepest self, and to have other people share their deepest self. So we didn't need to be intoxicated for that to happen. And I think with all the things going on in the world, the internet, social media, not against any of it, but it can be a lot more challenging to show who you are because everything's recorded. I even remember when I went on spring break in Cancun, back in the day, there was always clips of like girls would take their top off, and it would just be like this funny thing. But when I went, there were so many cameras and things. I'm not going to lie, that might have been something I would have considered. I just kind of find experiences like that fun, or sometimes I just don't have a big issue with being naked. That's something about me. Not that I walk around or anything, but yeah, I think it's fine. But because there were so many cameras, I just knew better than to do anything like that. And it's almost like sometimes because there's so many cameras, there's a lot less opportunity to be vulnerable in your real self, because you just never know who's watching or where a tape can be sent. And so in one way, we share a lot of information through the internet and through videos and all those things, but in another way, we're shut down. And so videos may even limit our ability to fully live out experiences that we want to have, because there's a Ring camera on every door, or there's just videos everywhere. Everyone has a phone with 6 cameras, and I know that's all perfect. But basically, the message of the guides today was that, if there's something going on in your life, maybe you haven't quite moved past a habit that you don't love, or you are judging as bad, one, to know that you are not your ego self. You can't do anything bad. You are unconditional love. So it doesn't mean to block out the world or to ignore it or to bypass it, but to two, know that if your intention is set to your true north, which is to be the highest aligned aspect of yourself, to experience who you are, and you are doing any kind of work to achieve that, setting intentions, meditating for 30 seconds, attempting to, have a positive perspective or patience around something, know that ultimately you'll get there, and it doesn't have to be restrictive. It doesn't have to be so boxed. It can be structured, it can be disciplined, but I found that the best things that I release in a way, they come from a flow release. We release with flow and not from restriction. And that is really what creates a neutrality around it. And I think the same thing can be applied to people if we have upsets around them. Like sometimes we do have an upset and we haven't really been able to step back or let it go, or maybe we spend a few moments in our unconditional, non-judgmental consciousness, but we're not able to fully embody that. That's okay. Just know that if your intention, your willingness is to forgive, and you're asking for your guides and teachers to help you with that, and you're really coming from a genuine place, it's going to happen inevitably. So enjoy your bad habit now. Don't judge it, because that guilt, that shame, that sorrow, that suffering, that's self-imposed. It's unnecessary, and it can create just more, tough experiences, I guess. That guilt, we hold that guilt within our energy fields, within our bodies and our minds, and that creates a point of attraction. And we might think we're being punished, we're doing something wrong, we're being punished, but really we're just punishing ourselves, which is another reason why stepping into the non-judgmental awareness, as Keith says it, sitting in the cinema with Jesus, or whoever your guides are. Jesus is, I believe in Jesus. He's not my only guide or main guide. I more kind of feel a lot of just energy of love. And so I sit in the cinema with the energy of love, and I look on all situations, and I just say to myself, when I'm in this mode, because I'm not always in this mode, but when I am in that mode, I just say to myself, what is the most loving interpretation of this situation, of this moment? How could this possibly be serving me? And when you look on situations in the cinema from that perspective, you will see how the Holy Spirit, how your guides look on every situation, because nothing is accidental. Everything is happening for a reason, and everything is always happening for us, not to us. And it can be hard to understand, it can be hard to embody, but if you're just willing to try, that is all that is needed, really, truly, to be more at peace and to navigate this life from a different level of consciousness and vibration. So that's what the guides wanted to say today. If you guys have any questions or comments, put them down in the chat. I'm taking a couple of days to chill and recover. I had a bunch of work last week. It was really great. But like I said in my last video, I'm going to set up a Patreon. I might be making custom cards. I love drawing and I make pretty cool cards and stuff. So I don't know, I'm thinking about what to offer. If you have any ideas about what you would want in my Patreon offerings, leave a comment below. I'm thinking about doing a live channeling night where people can come. I have a lot of ideas, but if there's something that you're really gaining from these videos that you want, let me know and I'll consider adding it to whatever I'm about to offer. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. And I will speak to you again at another time.